5 seconds. Welcome to this post-landing news conference for Space Shuttle Discovery's STS-128 mission to the International Space Station. Joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center are three briefers who will give us the latest on Discovery's successful mission following tonight's landing at Edwards Air Force Base in California. We do expect we'll be finished with this news conference before the crew does its traditional walk around the shuttle. If not, we will end the briefing and send it right back to California. For our briefers tonight, we have the Space Shuttle Launch Integration Manager, Mike Moses.
Good evening.
To his left is Horst Scharschmidt, the acting head of the Astronaut Division of the European Space Agency.
Oh, good evening.
And finally, we have the STS-128 Launch Director, Pete Nikolenko.
Good evening.
We'll start with comments and then open it up to questions. Mr. Moses?
Thanks, Sally. Let's see, we've had a fantastic mission. It was great to get Discovery home. She's back on Earth. We'll get her to the right coast here in about another week and get her back here to Florida. Had some weather challenges today, yesterday, actually back on launch day too, but that's life down here at the spaceport in Florida, and we have rules and procedures in place, and we kind of, actually when you boiled it right down today, it was not a hard call at all to go to Edwards. The dynamic weather situation here in Florida just was not worth the chance it would have taken to get there and come in today. Let's see, this was an absolutely fantastic vehicle. The orbiter performed almost flawlessly. We had just a couple minor little problems. It's a real testament to the teams here in Florida who turned this vehicle around and put it together flight after flight and really let the mission then unfold for what we need to do in orbit and not have to pay attention to our hardware that got us there. So that's fantastic. The external tank performed great. We've looked at all the post-flight imagery that we've had. We've done all our analysis. Doesn't look like we're going to have hardly any squawks on that tank at all, which puts us in really good shape to keep going. We had some foam loss on the previous flight that gave us some pause. We have a lot of actions in work, and we're going to continue those as we go forward, improve the ice frost ramps, keep an eye on our processes with the inner tank. But our risk-based approach of incrementally flying as we slowly change is still going to carry us through, and we're going to continue that on the external tank. The main engines, the SRBs, the boosters, did absolutely fantastic as well. So really good shape. You saw the orbiter, the thermal protection system was very clean, both after ascent and then during our post undock inspections, our late inspections. We came out of that very clean, and again, really let the crew focus on their mission. This turns out it was the 30th station assembly flight, which is a pretty big milestone, and we had some really superb accomplishments. 3 EVAs, about 17,000 pounds worth of hardware transferred inside and outside. We took up several new research facilities, a couple new research racks, another Melfi freezer, which will allow science to continue. We had the freezer on board station was pretty full. We actually emptied it out pretty good on this one and brought back a lot of return science. The MPLM really lets us kind of showcase what the shuttle can do for you, which is not only the upmass to the station in terms of the cargo bay, but the downmass as well, and bring stuff back home. And so a lot of good science return on this flight as well. And we'll see that as time goes on, as those get passed back out to the principal investigators and they get to finish off their science that they've been working on. And then obviously we dropped off Nicole Stott and returned Tim Kopra, and we picked up Buzz Lightyear and brought him home as well. So he's back on Earth with us too. We had another good example of using the high-speed capabilities of the orbiter as a test bed for future flight operations. Our boundary layer transition test objective, where we put a little protrusion, a bump on the underside of the wing to intentionally trip the boundary layer at a high Mach number and see what the heating conditions are. We had that on this flight. We flew it on STS-119 as well. This bump was a little bigger on this flight than it was on the last flight. And we just got the reports. The NASA Langley team flying the High Therm project were able to reposition themselves out over California. They had to dance with Hurricane Linda out there a little bit, but they got themselves in position and got really good science back off that. They said they got full imagery of the transition as we came across about Mach 18. So that's fantastic. We're going to look forward to the results of that. Other than that, it's just a good example to highlight too, not only with STS-128, but just the busy time we have in the space program, the space business. H2 and HTV had a fantastic launch this week, and our congratulations go out to JAXA and our Japanese colleagues. That's a massive milestone for them. The first flight of a new rocket is always a big thing. First flight of a new spacecraft. And it really shows that they're ready to step up and participate internationally. They have their research station up there now, but the transfer of cargo up to the station really gives them and gives us a capability that we really need as we go forward, and really highlights the importance of international cooperation as we move forward in space. We had a Constellation demonstration motor number 1 firing, the 5-segment Ares first stage fired out in Utah this week. If you got to see that firing, you kind of appreciate the power of that motor. That's a very massive rocket. One thing, when you see them launch here, you only get to hear them for a little bit, and you don't get to hear the full power of the 2 minutes firing. And so it was a very impressive firing. And then over in the VAB, I'll let Pete tell you a little bit about Ares 1X. They reached a good milestone today, and they're moving very, very, very well forward with their ability to launch here, probably the end of this October, coming up next month. So with that, I'll turn it over to Horst and let him make his comments.
Yeah, I'm very happy that all the crew is safe back on Earth, and they have done an excellent mission. Also, Krista has done 2 EVAs, and everything worked fine. So we are very proud about this, and we are happy that we have achieved with this mission again a very important step towards the completion of the space station. And we are working with ESA. We have built more than 3 decades ago the Space Lab, which went also up with the space shuttle, and then a logical consequence was the space station. I was the head of the Columbus program office in '86, so 25 years more or less I'm working on this program, and now it's a moment of exploitation. So we are very keen to see the International Space Station and the exploitation for this space station. So I think that this all leads us towards the future also for the exploration of the sun system. So I'm very happy about this mission.
Well, good evening. First off, like Mike, I'd also like to congratulate all the teams for an outstanding mission. I'm really proud of the performance of all the teams, and certainly the performance of the vehicle during the mission is a testimony towards all the diligence that all the folks here at KSC in processing and everybody around the world performed in support of this wonderful mission. Convoy operations at Edwards Air Force Base are proceeding nominally. The flight crew has already egressed off the vehicle, and as far as we understand, all the timelines they're working right on the timelines and are tracking no issues. We expect them to complete the convoy operations in tow to the demate device at Dryden Flight Research Center at about 4 hours. And we expect our standard Dryden turnaround operations to take place, which is about 7 days, looking to begin ready to ferry back to here at KSC in about a week, on or about next Friday or so. And as Mike also mentioned, teams continue to remain really busy here at KSC. STS-129 vehicle processing continues on track with no issues, and we're moving forward towards launch in November. And also, as he mentioned today, the Ares 1X processing team achieved a significant milestone. They performed their initial vehicle power application today successfully, which powered up the vehicle on both channels of powered and verified that all the boxes were powered on properly. And they did verify that the voltages and currents were nominal, which is the primary purpose of this beginning. Actually, it's a 3-day test. So I'd like to congratulate all the teams supporting the Ares 1X test flight and program in support of this significant milestone. In summary, we're all staying busy, looking forward to bringing Discovery back, but even more importantly, are happy about having Discovery back down on the ground, and the teams here are ready to get back to work. Thank you.
All right, thanks. We'll now take it to questions. When the microphone gets to you, please say your name, news affiliation, and whom you'd like to answer your question. We'll start with Todd.
Todd Halverson of Florida Today. One for Mike and one for Pete. For Mike, I'm wondering if you can gauge for me the probability of completing the remaining manifest by the end of 2010. And for Pete, I understand you might be working toward a November 9th date for the STS-129 mission, and I wondered if you think that that's possible. And on Discovery, will its landing at Edwards in any way cause a delay in its next flight?
Let's see. The first question was looking at the long-range manifest. You know, we still have a manifest that looks like it's supportable at the end of the fiscal year, but we've kind of run out of margin to wiggle. Our manifest guys back in Houston sent me a note that I wish I would have remembered to talk to you guys about after the last launch, because it kind of showed that if you went back a year and a half ago, the original launch date for STS-128 was about a month before we actually launched it. So with all the flow control valve delays that we had, all the fill and drain valves, all the weather delays, over that course of a year, we only actually ended up affecting that launch date by about a month. And it really shows how it's not a serial ripple one vehicle to the next one. It kind of takes a couple, and you can kind of pull some of that back out, and you can rearrange and reshuffle flights. But we've kind of run out of room to do that now. So we're kind of at the end of our like I said, our bag of tricks that let us wiggle. And so now any big delays, if we miss the window that we have before a beta cutout or a Soyuz cutout, we probably will then bump out of September. As you know, we've been kind of operating with the assumption that we're going to get permission to go ahead and be able to extend out into 2011 if we need to. The Augustine executive summary recommends that. The administrator has recommended that, and the president has kind of expressed his interest in that as well. So we'll wait for that to become official, but that does take a little bit of the pressure off. It's not so much that there was pressure, it was just now we know we can wiggle a little if we need to. So we're going to take each one as we go, and as long as we do that, I think we'll be in really good shape in terms of we'll be done when we're done, and it'll be a safe and steady pace.
Well, regarding, let's see, first for 129, we are moving in the direction of launch on November 9th. We have not, that hasn't been approved yet through all the program channels, but we're moving in that direction. And with regards to our landing at California and for the next flight of Discovery next March, we do, based on the manifest planning, protect for at least a 6-day potential bump for a landing out west in California. And so at this point, there seems to be margin that will still allow us to hold to that springtime launch next year.
Okay. How about James?
James Dean from Florida today. Just, I guess, following up on the manifest, Mike, when do you expect a decision on which mission will be the last?
Let's see, we've talked about that a couple times now. We're, I think, about ready to go forward with the final plan. If I remember right, October was the deadline that we had to be able to make that decision to set the training plans in motion. And so I suspect the teams are, excuse me, the teams are ready to probably make that recommendation. We haven't tagged up with them recently. We'll probably do that now that Discovery's down, and probably within the next couple weeks or so. October, I'd say mid-October, we'll probably pick that and define which the last flight's going to be.
For either Mike or Pete, I get ferry flights, always a neat spectacle for people to observe as it crosses the country. I guess it's not that uncommon based on the last few missions, but just wonder if you could say a few words about what is entailed in getting a vehicle back across the country, what people will get to see, and just the manpower and effort and all required to make it happen.
Let's see, I can let Pete talk about the manpower and some of the tasks. You know, there's first off the big Army that gets to go out to Dryden and do the turnaround operations that we would normally be doing here, and then, as Pete said, that takes about a week, and then it gets handed over to the ferry team to bring the vehicle back, which kind of is comprised of the pilots and the aircraft operation guys, as well as the ground operations guys who take care of the vehicle as it comes across the country. This one's kind of a heavyweight with the MPLM in it, so I think the template says we'd have to make 4 stops, 1 overnight on the way home. Weather always messes with that plan, but if we had a perfect weather day, you'd see us do it in 2 days with 1 overnight, stopping a couple times as we go. I think actually the preliminary plan they pitched us pre-launch was the same exact route that 125 took. But again, that's not really worth a whole lot until you get to the actual weather day to see what's in front of you. So the team that does that, it's gotten a lot of practice lately, and they're very good at it. And it's kind of funny, you know, we kind of treat the ferry flight as the public gets to see it. It's a nice thing to do. We get to kind of show the orbiter off. But in terms of risk to the vehicle, it's you know, there's quite a bit of risk to that hardware. You know, it's effectively an experimental aircraft as we bring it across country. And we do it nice and safe and slow and steady, but it does drive a lot of those questions of, well, hey, how come you didn't fly over my house, and how come you didn't come my way, and you know, I wanted to see you fly by. And those plans really have to change last minute as the weather shows up. We fly very low to keep the temperatures in the right range. We use a lot of fuel, so we have to stop a whole lot, and that really limits our ability to kind of go wherever we want to. So it's not a risk-free operation, and we take it very seriously. It's nice that along with that we kind of get a little goodwill tour with it, and I know for a fact that when you get up in the morning after spending an overnight in El Paso or in Dallas, and you're driving into the base and you see that cars are parked for miles around on the freeways waiting for us to take off, that's a really good feeling. It makes you feel pretty proud to be part of the program. But I'll let Pete wants to add anything there.
No, I think you covered most of it, Mike.
I stole that one from you.
Well, really, the team it's about a 30-person team. We have members of a lot of the KSC ground operations personnel, and also there are members of the Department of Defense that help us with that coordination. And of course, we also have weather folks that help us along the way with forecasting. We do have a Pathfinder aircraft that does depart 5 minutes prior to the shuttle carrier aircraft, and just making sure that the flight path tries to avoid any kind of precipitation across the route. So, and those folks that are here that support that from the ground operations teams are there to protect various aspects of the thermal protection system, make any adjustments as required, and verify that conditioned air is applied to the vehicle as required.
James,
Just
a
a
plethora of questions there, James?
Yeah, I'm going to just keep going if you don't mind. Just a couple more. A very quick follow-up. If you could just elaborate on what are the chief risks that are involved to the vehicle. You mentioned temperatures is one thing to protect, but I'm sorry. And also, Pete, you mentioned the crew is out of the vehicle. I know it's extremely early, but I don't know if you have any preliminary word on how Tim Copra was feeling after his 2 months in orbit, or anyone else?
I had not heard. We had just received the word as we were on our way over here that the crew had left the orbiter and was in the crew transport vehicle, but we had not heard any feedback on the condition of the crew.
And on the ferry flight risks, the constraints that we try to cover are the temperature limits that we got to stay under. The orbiter's not powered up. Some critical systems are, but not all of it. And so we don't want it to get too cold. We have to keep it at the right pressure, being without all the avionics up and running. We don't want it to get too cold. We're worried about precipitation. We don't want to fly through rain. The rain on the tile will do a lot of damage to it. And so we need to stay away from there. So the risk isn't so much that the act of flying it is dangerous. It's just the act of being able to get it across the country in a timely manner and keeping everything rolling through takes a lot of risk management and a lot of risk trades to decide whether you need to go that day to. There's a storm in front of you that you want to follow, but you don't want to stay too close to it, but you can't wait behind because there's another one coming behind you. And so that's the risk that you kind of find yourself trapped somewhere and it's about to rain on you. That's the last thing we want to do. So it's a hard process to balance that weather conditions. And sometimes the right answer is just to wait in the desert of California for another couple days until it's all blown out. We've had to do that in the past too.
Okay, well, Evan?
Good evening, Eben Brown, Fox News Radio, for whoever would like to answer it. Shuttle had to move out of the way of some debris it apparently may have caused. Did we find out what that debris was, and how much of an inconvenience is that when something like that happens?
Well, I don't have any reports. Based on the characteristics of it, it was a very draggy object, which means it was probably something like a soft good that came off. They've done an inventory. No tools were missing, no hardware was missing, so we're not really sure what that was. And it's going to be, on the trajectory it is, it's going to be out of orbit pretty fast. And so they'll go back and try to recreate a ballistic coefficient and try to get an idea of what material that could have been. I haven't heard the latest results. I'm sure they've probably actually already done that. As far as the need to move out of the way, that was actually, normally you see us do that with the space station. We wait until we get a really good track. We know exactly where we are. We know exactly where the object is. And then you can compute a probability of collision. And usually they're pretty small and we don't have to do anything. This was more an example of we didn't want to wait, because if we would have waited, it would have been very close to the deorbit burn. We can still maneuver then, but it just then throws a wrench into all the planning we did for the burn. And we really don't want those teams to have to recompute the burn targets that close to the burn. They certainly can. It's not hard. It's just you kind of want to keep on your pace. And so we maneuvered early just to make it go away and not have to worry about it all that day. So, I don't know what the probability actually was if we projected forward, but we probably didn't need to maneuver for that one. We just wanted to take care of it and make sure it was behind us and we never had to talk about it again. It's not really inconvenience, maybe the right word. It's easy enough to do. When you're made into the space station, it's a little harder to move the bigger stack, coordinate with the international partners and the Russians. You just make sure everybody's ready to go and doesn't have any constraints. When the orbiter's alone, it's easy to just kind of hop in and get out of the way of the thing. So it's not that big a deal, but it is something we do take very seriously and track very closely, as you see.
What is the current price tag for moving the shuttle landing at Edwards back over here?
I think we use a generic number of 1.8 million, right? And then most of that is in terms of fuel costs. Actually, in the SCA, we burn a lot of gas as we come across the country. I think the pilots love telling me we burn 1 gallon of gas for every length of the airplane. So,
Do you have any other new questions? Okay, we'll go back for the final questions from Todd.
Yeah, Todd Halverson of Florida Today again. I have two. One for our European friend. Could you give me an idea of the schedule for European Space Agency astronauts flying up to the International Space Station, and how much use you're going to get as a result out of the Columbus module between now and 2015?
Yeah, we will have next year Roberto Vittori flying with the space shuttle to the space station. So this will be with the AMS mission, so one of the last but one mission of the shuttle. And also in the next year we will have Paolo Nespoli flying with Soyuz for an increment mission to the space station. A year later, in 2011, we will have Andrei Kuipers flying. So and then the next ESA mission will be in 2015. And in the meantime, we will have also European astronauts flying from our corps on the two MPLM missions, the two increments which Italy has together with NASA by the RC-NASA MOU. So this will be in 2013, end of 2012, 2013. We don't know exactly now when it will be. So mostly every year we will have a flight. And we will, Columbus has, we were very, this was for Europe was very important to have Columbus attached to the space station, and last year it was brought up with a shuttle, and now the half of the Columbus is filled by European payload, the other half by US payload, and we are working with these RECs with different experiments, and until 2015 this is now the most important part for the exploitation of the space station and for the experiments to be run in the Columbus module.
Thanks. And for Pete and Mike, I was wondering how you guys feel personally about the executive summary that went to the Augustine Committee and the options that have been presented to the White House and the President, and particularly in regards to the future of the space shuttle. Most of the options would have the shuttle end after the current manifest. And for Pete in particular, almost all of these options would kill the Ares 1, and I'm wondering what you think about that, the wisdom of that.
Let's see, Pete, I guess I'll go first and give you time to think. I read the executive summary, and I didn't, when I read it, I kind of took away, yep, that's what I've been hearing for the last year. It was about what we thought. And then we kind of talked about it with the senior leadership team. Everybody kind of gave their impressions of what they took away from it. And it was kind of funny when you went back and compared. People took away from it what they wanted to read into it. And so, you're talking about killing Ares 1. I don't think it actually says kill Ares 1 in there, but you kind of can read into that if you want. Or you can read into it that Ares 1 is going to be perfectly fine and it might be operated by a commercial company instead of NASA. You can really read into it whatever you're really kind of looking for. It's a bunch of options. The things that were pretty clear, though, is shuttle in 2010, 2011, and station going to 2020. Both those, I think, are pretty key for shuttle. Getting rid of that kind of end date really does help us complete the manifest in a nice package, as opposed to losing a few flights off the end and really leaving the station in a bind. We wouldn't have rushed. We wouldn't have done it unsafely. We would have just had to stop when we ran out of money. So now that we don't have to do that, that'll be really good for the station. And then that rolls right into the 2020 for station. As you see, we just got up, and as Horst was talking about, we just got up into the utilization phase of station, and we're really going to start getting the return on science. And to stop that early would be hard to do. you have to temper that with the budget, because that's the other thing I took away from the Augustine report, was that it made it very clear that our budget doesn't support everything we'd like to go do. That's true with no matter whose budget you're looking at. I have the same problem at home right now. But you know, so as much as I don't want to end shuttle, because I love flying this vehicle, it's a fantastic thing. It does an amazing job. We do have to take the money and put it somewhere else. Station, at some point, you're going to have to make that same call. And so that's the agency's job and the administration's job, is to go see how we really want to balance those national priorities. And do we want to spend more money and keep what we're doing, which I think is in that Augustine summary. You can then again draw your own conclusions as to what the budget's going to be like and whether that's going to happen in our current economic time frame or not. So I'm giving you the politically correct answer of right now it's just a list of options, and the hard work is in front of us to go figure out which one we're going to pick.
Well, my take is amen. By and large, it's the shuttle has been an amazing and wonderful vehicle, and many of us have had the pleasure of spending a great amount of time of much of our careers working on and with and around the space shuttle. Then again, we've got to basically, our jobs here locally are to do operations and implement the decisions that our agency and executive leadership mandate for us. So, as a good soldier, we'll salute and drive on.
Okay, I think we have one last question, and then we got to.
Eben Brown, Fox News Radio again. If the decision would be made to keep station flying beyond, I think it was 2015, 2016. Anything need to be done? Anything need to be done to make sure that it has a life beyond that, or is it ready to fly that much longer without any tweaking, if that's the right word?
They have
tune-ups, if you will.
Yeah, from a paperwork standpoint, there's some certification paperwork that needs to be updated, and there's probably a little bit of testing that goes with that. I know the station program's been tackling that already. They have a list of what they need to go do to officially extend themselves past 2015, and it's nothing that's insurmountable. It's just some stuff you got to go work on. The logistics posturing, we've kind of started doing that already to get them what they need to. The commercial vehicles doing resupply are going to help. The ATV and the HTV resupply, along with the Russian resupplies, are really going to help. So nothing drastic, but it's going to be a good example. We're already learning the lessons. This was a good example on this flight. The oxygen generation system has been having some troubles, and we've been tearing into it. And it turns out there's a filter that got clogged up, and the crew was able to tear it apart and take it apart. And, when we initially designed this thing, you'd kind of think that, hey, putting filters in flying was probably a pretty good idea. But we learned that things off gas and stuff works a little differently in a zero-gravity fluid environment than you think it would on the ground. And so one of the great takeaways from this was a really eye-opening experience for the fluid system guys to say, hey, if we're going to go beyond Earth orbit, we can't let our oxygen generation system fail and wait for a part to fly up on a Progress. We need to make sure we put filters at every junction and that they're crew breakable. The crew can break into them and replace them, and we take a lot of spares, or that you can clean them and repair them. So flying station to 2020 is going to teach us those lessons. As its maintenance goes on, we're going to really learn how to do maintenance. And so, yeah, it's a long-winded answer to your question of there's going to be some maintenance that has to happen and kind of have to do the MacGyver thing probably, but that's what we need to go learn how to do.
All right, with the MacGyver note, we'll end this. And that's our final question. So we will now head back to Rob Navius in the Mission Control Center in Houston for the remaining NASA TV coverage of Space Shuttle Discovery's STS-128 mission. Thanks for joining us.